How many of you are tired watching Valorant highlights only to get excited, head into a game and aim like this? Well, I've got you covered. Yo, Scyfe here, just out of the knife, and welcome to my updated crosshair placement guide to help you win a lot more gunfights in the most common scenarios. I know you've heard this a million times, but just hear me out. Head level essentially refers to making sure your crosshair is at head level. It seems easy, but what you fail to realize is how detailed it can be. Will your crosshair be at the same height regardless of distance? Of course not. The further an enemy is from you, the lower they'll be from your initial crosshair point. See how my crosshair is perfectly on the head of Phoenix. Now look at a distance of 40 meters and notice what was perfect head level is now well above his head. It's all down to distance. This is why so many of you look at Valorant in a two-dimensional manner. You need to realize how distance greatly impacts your crosshair placement, and simply seeing head level crosshair as just having your crosshair higher up isn't enough. As a rule of thumb, whenever you're holding or peeking an angle further out, lower your crosshair slightly. Practicing this isn't particularly easy, it's more or less playing the game and getting your reps in. However, you can greatly accelerate this by going into a custom game and utilizing the images I've posted in the description. Essentially aligning your crosshair to how mine is. Here's a total of 7 screenshots of each map showcasing the common spots, because not everyone has the time or ability to have a friend stand in common spots. All I ask is that you like the video. The next point is knowing where to position your crosshair when peeking a sight. Again, you've seen this covered a lot, which is slicing the pie. Slicing the pie allows you to limit the number of angles you expose yourself to by isolating them individually. And the better you are at this, the quicker you can eliminate them. It's a cornerstone concept within crosshair placement and one that is essential to succeed. Firstly, you need to make sure your understanding of head level crosshair placement is adequate, as this takes it up a notch. Secondly, have a good enough grasp of movement. The basic version of slicing the pie and what most players use is peeking in what you'd consider an arc-like manner by positioning the crosshair on the corner and peeking slowly. Although this is bad, it's still a massive improvement over the beginner version of just running to the side like this. The advanced form, and one that I strongly recommend and actively use, is combining the fundamentals of strafing, which is stopping before shooting, and head level crosshair placement. The very first thing I do is visualize the first angle, strafe the necessary distance with my crosshair already pre-aimed. Notice how I'm pre-aiming. I'm not moving my mouse all that much. I've already positioned my crosshair here, and the main reason is when I do strafe, I want my crosshair already pre-aimed, removing the aspect of actively aiming, essentially making my life easier in the event there's an enemy present. From there, it's a matter of repeating the steps. But when you approach a spot where there are 2 angles where an enemy could be, which one do you prioritize? Well, this comes down to which of the 2 angles is more common. So for this particular spot, it's clearly going to be the one on heaven. Why? Because the other angle is essentially a one and done spot, meaning whoever decides to play there has very limited options to escape. They can't really go to the right because it's blocked off, and the distance between the nearest safe zone is here, but in between is a spammable box known as dice. So we will pre-aim heaven as opposed to left side hell. But keep in mind that the rule of thumb is whichever spot is more common, it's where you pre-aim, since it's impossible to pre-aim both at the same time. Holding angles. An area that so many seem to get confused about is understanding how to hold angles. I've mentioned it so many of my guides like here, but to summarize, holding an angle can be a relatively simple task as most of the chips are on your side. And if you're consistently losing fights when holding angles, something isn't right. Just like prior, will be implemented in the basics, which is head level and building on that. Holding angles can be broken down into several steps. What is the angle you're in? Is it a common angle or is it an off angle? A common angle being one that is frequently held, and an off angle can be any angle that is uncommon to see a player holding. If you're on a common angle, understand that when the enemy peeks you, they'll be prepared for you. So it's important to position your crosshair appropriately. If you're on an off angle, you have the element of surprise. However, there is no escape, so it's imperative you're holding wider. As the moment they clear one common angle, they'll be pre-aiming the next common angle, and that's your window to strike. And generally, if you're in an off angle, hold wide, and if you're common angle, hold tight. However, what's common is players holding very tight and relying too much on their flicks, which is one of the main reasons they fumble their shots when holding, and it's something that I'm guilty of. Whenever you're flicking, you're processing the enemy swinging and adjusting your crosshair to flick to either where they're gonna be or as they're swinging. But how many of you have held tight, missed a shot, had the enemy swing, and you whiffed a flick only to be killed? Proper crosshair placement eliminates this RNG by simply doing all the work and only requiring you to just click. A neat tip to know where to position a crosshair is, if you're not parallel with an angle, you should hold wider and adjust based on your reaction time. So the greater the degree you are from an angle, the wider you hold. For instance, in an obtuse angle like this, you would hold fairly wide compared to if you're parallel with one. Understood? Perfect. One way to greatly improve your chance of winning duels when holding is learn to utilize off angles more often. The number of you watching that routinely hold standard angles like these without thinking, is this optimal for me? It's far too high. Let's derive a simple scenario so you can better understand my point. Time is ticking. With each second, the enemy is struggling to hit a sight. In a desperate attempt to win the round, they call a fake to A, get a team to rotate, but you smartly decide to stay, and now you hear multiple enemies pushing towards you. What would you do in this situation? Would you A, hold this spot, or B, decide to utilize this off angle? If you chose B, you're correct. Why? Because the enemy don't have the time to meticulously clear every angle, let alone off angles. As long as your shot is good, you can reliably get 1 or 2 and even win the round. Check out this guide in the top right hand corner to rapidly improve your proficiency with the Vandal. Last but not least, I'll be breaking down some I consider to have the best crosshair placement fundamentals. For me, Ye epitomizes sublime crosshair placement, and although he's in a slump right now, there's a reason why he has smooth, consistent aim, and it all comes down to his understanding of crosshair placement. Let's look at this clip and showcase how Ye is able to anticipate the enemy and effortlessly eliminate them.
Outside. I'm flanking one.
Nice.
One's having any drop backside.
One flank and one drop.
One enemy remaining.
Last one drop behind you.
Flank. Which one?
Did he break door? Broke door.
Yeah, right there. You break the door.
Based on what I told you earlier, did you notice how Ye was able to win those gunfights? If you did, perfect. The moment Reyna saw Ye, he immediately repositioned in anticipation of a swing. And look where he positions his crosshair. From here to here. And the reason why is so that if the Reyna decides to hunt, he's ready and waiting. He feels the Reyna isn't going to swing, but look how he's moving in connection with his crosshair. He's not doing this, which so many of us are guilty, especially myself, but moving whilst positioning his crosshair, so all he has to do is just tap.
Any drop backside.
One flank and one drop.
This is wonderful from Ye. He hears a call, one heaven, he dropped back sight, and look at the way Ye is setting himself up for a simple kill. As he's moving, he's still keeping his crosshair the same distance, so that if the omen peeks, it's just a simple click and he's dead. Lastly, for the killjoy, he maintains the same philosophy of keeping your crosshair in the same distance even when moving, and when the killjoy peaks, he literally didn't even have to flick but the tiniest of micro adjustments. What I want everyone that's watching is head into a custom game and practice this technique. Try clearing angles by having your crosshair slightly further out as opposed to having it wandering around or very tight to an angle. Because we all know if an enemy peeks, they're going to peek like this, so why not be better prepared for them? Practice this technique alongside visualizing common angles by using the screenshots I've attached in the comments and the description. And lastly, jump in the rage by practicing shooting the bots one shot on the target like this. I've been practicing this technique for years and it's become second nature. So all you do is just spawn easy bots, identify the target, take your time to move your crosshair. Once it's on the head, then shoot. And then from there, it's just about practice. If you want an advanced and more comprehensive aim routine designed to build the right habits, check out my aim routine guide. I hope you learn a lot from this guide and understand the importance of crosshair placement. And as always, until next time, smooth is fast. I recommend doing a total of 100 bots each session with at least a 95% accuracy. The next scenario is stop and shoot. Too many players shoot. Scenario